In a world full of repetitive AAA games stuffed with lackluster content to try and validate your $60 purchase, one of the greatest indie games to ever exist is here to save the day. That game is Crosscode, a single-player experience set in a simulated, massively multiplayer online world. Yep. Crosscode is a single-player action RPG taking place in an MMO, and a damn good one at that. It contains all of the quests, NPCs, friends, and lore of a traditional MMO with none of the manufactured grind. Okay, with some of the manufactured grind, but nothing anywhere near as bad as other MMOs. The game also features an in-depth, rewarding, and skill-based combat system with the puzzles to match it. In this video, we'll delve into my experiences with the game, and I'll try to convince you why it very well might be worth your coveted Game of the Year title. So let's get into it. Crosscode reminds me of childhood. To me, it's reminiscent of the bright, fun games I grew up with like MapleStory or Pokemon long before I was allowed to fall in love with Halo. The game's vibrant 16-bit style gives it the visuals of an SNES game, but its plot and its mechanics rival that of modern titles and even exceeds them. It might look it, but Crosscode isn't a lighthearted game. It's one that demands you learn its dodge mechanic to survive, master its throw ability to attack, understand its guard move to save your health, and grasp its melee to deal massive damage. Each of these core combat pillars are vital to your success, and failing to become skilled in any of them will punish you down the line. Is it smarter for me to guard or dodge the bovine's charge move? Are melee attacks more efficient than throw attacks against the hedgehog? Failing to learn and master these scenarios means dying until you instill them in your head, and doing so requires complete focus. Checking a text on your phone during combat will absolutely cause you to get hurt. Your brain drifting off to think of that one thing that happened that one time may very well kill you. Once you understand the basics, Crosscode adds 4 elements that modify your guard, throw, melee, and dodge. It brings in type weaknesses, stats, items, and party members and tasks you with learning which combination of all of these factors work best. Then it tests your understanding with various boss fights and challenging enemies. Now it's dodge this robot's attack it with the wave element, avoid its retaliation, then rush in for a few melee hits or a charged attack. Oh yeah, there's charged attacks too, known in-game as combat arts. Tons for each element that bring different damage and status effects to your core combat moves. They're balanced out by skill points earned by getting hits on enemies. The more skill points you have, the more powerful combat art you can use. Then it introduces element cooldown. Using fire, ice, wave, or electric moves fills up an icon on the top left of your screen. Once it's full, you're locked out of elements until it cools down. The only way to prevent this is attacking normally, with more attacks cooling the bar down faster. It forces you to plan your attacks carefully and to prevent you from spamming fireballs or wasting melee ice moves. I told you, Crosscode requires your full attention. Fortunately, it earns that attention. Balancing out this combat system is a world-spanning plot that covers unexpected themes like friendship, having a sense of self, what it means to be human, and why you can't let your life be consumed by work. I won't spoil anything here, but the writing delves into heavy, reflective stuff that often had me pausing to ponder. You play as a girl named Lee. Waking up inside the MMO called Crossworlds, Lee has lost her memory, and a guy named Sergey, speaking to her through the game's backend, informs her she must play the game to regain it. A strange remedy indeed, but there's really no choice but to trust him. She can't talk, as her voice module is broken anyway, so it's not like she can argue. After a lengthy tutorial stage, Lee's silent but welcoming aura quickly makes some friends, joins a guild, and begins to make her way through the game. What's interesting about the single-player MMO angle is it allowed developer Radical Fish Games to avoid the typical pitfalls that befell the genre. There's no waiting for real-life times to line up to join a raid. The typical MMO grind is there but massively negated. Crosscode doesn't have trolling or dealing with negative players, and the world is always populated, even if you play the game years down the line. It's not perfect, and I'll get into some of its flaws later, but as a more introverted person myself, it was nice to have the MMO experience without any of the social requirements. With every player technically being an NPC, the devs had fun writing what players would say in a real MMO. Some complain that content takes too long to come out, while others are tired of fetch quests. Players at the end of one dungeon share some secrets about it, they'll discuss the game's lore and get mad at friends going AFK. Then there are the completely random players like these two who argue about sitting on a table. These scenes are just the game's writers trying to make us laugh, and the absurdity of some of them actually do just that. Also, the MMO actually takes place on top of a real-world space, a moon in the Milky Way galaxy called Raritan Gem. A publishing house called Instatainment, the in-game equivalent to EA or Activision and the creator of Crossworlds, inhabited the moon to build the continent Crossworlds exists on, which they call Shadoon. The terrain you're exploring is real, even if gamified. Some of the players are, well, players logged in from their house, while others are real-world employees that wear hologoggles to see the characters and interact with the space. These workers are consistently expanding the world and assisting players, even making comments on some of the more eccentric ones. It's a strange dynamic I haven't seen in a game before, and a really neat piece of lore that's utilized quite well, though I won't spoil how. But where the writing really shines is in Crosscode's main set of characters. Lee's friends and enemies are a varied bunch. Her best friend, Emily, is a French girl who loves and accepts people of all sorts, even if she's absolutely terrified of bugs. Another friend, Trani, is a super nerd who has so many problems with the environmental design of the game, but eventually learns to shut the hell up and play along with everything if he doesn't want to piss everyone else off. More friends and enemies are introduced, like additional guildmates or another player who has a vendetta against Lee for being the same class as him. Each bring with their own fleshed out personalities and memorable moments, though a few guildmates are criminally underused. No one minds that Lee can't talk. It's great how positive everyone is, representing the positive side of MMO communities rather than the toxic one. I love being in this sort of online environment, even if it's technically offline, without having to deal with toxicity. And keeping in line with healthy relationships, have you considered subscribing to my channel? I publish analytical content on all sorts of games, and I'm slowly playing through the Resident Evil and Final Fantasy games for the first time. If any of that interests you, consider subbing to the channel and sharing this video. It really helps me out. Now, some of Crosscode's characters are optional party members as well, making the difficult combat much more bearable, which is huge in the early game as you learn the ropes. Seriously, even the most basic enemies will give you a hard time, and party members not only draw their attacks away from you, but they do tons of extra damage as well. Each character plays an important part in the plot, with their role in this world slowly revealed as you move through the game. It's worth noting, however, that both the main plot and the gameplay take some time to pick up. You're going to move through 2 or so introductory worlds before the game moves from some more common fetch quests and basic plot development and turns into something special, but this isn't a massive ask of your time. For example, most of the beginner quests will have you simply roaming around the different areas, collecting a number of things and killing an amount of enemies. But later on, one quest has you saving hostages from evil parrots, being careful not to hit the hostages in the crossfire. Or another quest will see you glitching out of the playable world and into some discarded content. There's even a tower defense quest with its own mini economy that rewards you for playing well. Eventually, the quests become so interesting that each feels like its own little main quest, with many of them featuring multiple parts and unique gameplay mechanics that only appear in each one. But even then, Crosscode peppers in enough variety in other ways to keep you interested before these moments come. For one, each world is absolutely gorgeous. You'll go through the game witnessing every color you've ever dreamed of and then some. While the worlds probably have a little too many areas, an aspect of the MMO genre this game didn't do away with, you'll never tire of staring at the beautiful pixel art that makes up the nature, enemies, and overall feel of the world. One area is a massive jungle full of ponds and rivers to hop through. Within it lives a race of bird people that hate humankind. Another is a snow-capped mountain packed with evil snowmen, goats, and rabbits. Every world comes with a hub of some sort to explore, housing the game's various factions and other quest givers, as well as traders and some hidden puzzles. Ah yes, then there's the puzzle and platforming aspect of the game. These worlds are full of jumping puzzles and hidden treasures, so much so that trying to get them all right away is an overwhelming ask. Crosscode throws platform after platform at you no matter the world, and while an enjoyable jumping experience, I strongly suggest going through the game at a normal pace first, finding some secrets here and there, rather than trying to 100% each area on your first time through. Only the most dedicated of completionists should attempt this. Fortunately, most of this content is optional. Puzzles start out having you ricochet throwables off of different environmental structures, but they eventually turn into multi-element speed rounds that will have you stopping and thinking for minutes at a time, especially the later game dungeon puzzles. These were my favorite part of the game, and the sheer amount and variety of each was more than enough to break up the combat moments. I do wish there were more than just throwable based puzzles, however. Just about every single dungeon puzzle involved this mechanic, and while I understand it acts as a sort of skill progression throughout the game, I would have appreciated some extra variety. There's a clear line drawn between the combat and puzzle aspects of the game. They rarely, if ever, overlap, and I see that as a good thing. The puzzles require complete focus, much like in the Portal games, and including combat while trying to figure them out would have taken away from the experience. Of course, enemies, especially bosses, have puzzle-like gimmicks that are fun to figure out on top of the more traditional combat patterns. A dungeon boss might require you to set up frozen platforms to reach it during the damage phase, missing out on valuable health points if you fail to make it. In fact, most of the game's dozens of bosses are some variation of this, punishing you until you figure out the gimmick. Considering the sheer variety of bosses in the first place, this is a fantastic mechanic. It means you're going into each fight without knowing what to expect. Beating one on your first try is a genuine accomplishment, showcasing complete mastery of the game's mechanics. Even the few times bosses do repeat, they're brought in with enough new challenges that it just isn't bothersome. Unfortunately, some aspects of the game aren't handled with as much grace. While the combat is challenging and rewarding, it can get repetitive to the point where you might need a break every few hours, especially in the drawn-out early game that eases you into the mechanics. For players new to gaming, the opening world is wonderfully designed. Complex quests and heaps of plot development would have distracted from this learning. But as someone who's been playing games every day for 22 years, it was the visuals, the music, and the characters that kept me going until things got really good. Again, it doesn't take too long for that to happen, and the early game isn't bad, but it will certainly strike as derivative for some. I mentioned this already, but just how big the worlds are does hurt the game a bit. I understand it's supposed to replicate an MMO, but having 12 to 15 similar looking areas in one world gets tiresome. Towards the end, I was skipping most side content and exploration just to get through the final worlds. As pretty as these worlds were, sometimes I just didn't want to fight through 60 enemies to get to a couple of chests. This hurt the inner completionist in me, but I can always go back to clear them later. I'd describe my relationship with Crosscode as one in flow. There's enough depth to the game that when I'm growing tired of one aspect, the others shine through to keep it strong. When I felt the combat getting repetitive, a new plot moment or character comes in to distract from that until some variation comes. Just as the plot is taking a little long to move forward, a new enemy type or combat element is introduced to shake things up. Crosscode is long. I did a relatively straightforward playthrough, skipping the more filler side quests as the game went on, and still hit 43 hours. There is a ton of content I can go back and finish, easily enough to push me past 100 hours, but it's amazing how well paced the game is if you focus on all of its aspects. There's so much depth to each part of the game, from its plot to its combat to its world and encounter design, and it's drip fed to you enough so there's always something new to latch onto. Those really into lore will find even more to enjoy. Hidden lore books are sprinkled throughout the world, hinting at the early development of the game and some of its historical moments. Each town also adds to the MMO's overall backstory, going into the different gods and elements that allegedly built the space. Of course, in a really meta way, this is all lore Instatainment wrote to flesh out Crossworlds, which was obviously actually written by Radical Fish Games, and there's enough to take up hours of reading should you be so inclined. The game even has a raid system integrated within the story and an arena mode for post-game focus. There isn't a ton of content toward the endgame, though you'll definitely have some levels to grind out and challenges to complete if you're going for 100%. That said, the team is working on a post-game chapter that should come with a ton of extra content within the next year. Even without that content, the game is still worth its ridiculously low $20 price on PS4. So yeah, Crosscode is definitely in the running for my game of the year. Its art style, combat, and story are everything I could have wanted out of the game. Gorgeous, colorful pixel art, challenging and rewarding fights, and an impactful plot that delves into so many different themes. Every aspect of the game received the necessary development time. There's no, the gameplay sucks but the story's great, or fun combat but terrible level design complaints to make here. You can rate every feature on a scale that starts at good and ends on incredible. Put simply, it's a game with heart. A neat take on the MMO genre that doesn't require a monthly time sink. Crosscode appears like any other pixel art indie title, but slowly sheds into a one-of-a-kind experience that's worth your investment. Well guys, that's about it for Crosscode. I hope you enjoyed and can make an informed purchase. If you liked the video, be sure to, well, like it, and comment your thoughts on the game down below. Subscribe for more content in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.